A phone call has happened between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President Volodymyr Zelenskyy of Ukraine. Zelenskyy called Prime Minister for that phone call. Now, let me just give the bare bones facts about what happened through the releases from both the sides. So, from Prime Minister's office in India, it says that Prime Minister Modi spoke to President Zelenskyy, in which Zelenskyy shared his views on recent developments related to Ukraine, and Prime Minister reaffirmed India's consistent position for peaceful settlement of the conflict and support for efforts aimed at earliest restoration of peace. Essentially a reiteration of what Prime Minister Modi has always maintained in terms of the Russia-Ukraine war, that cessation of hostilities should happen. This is not an era of war, and peace should prevail. The leaders reviewed progress of India-Ukraine bilateral partnership, and then it goes on to say that the call came from the Ukrainian side, and some details were shared. Essentially, a bare bones, detail coming out of the Indian readout of the Zelenskyy-Modi phone call. Now, look at what President Zelenskyy has said in his post, and giving details of the conversation that he had with Prime Minister Modi, where he says that we discussed in detail all important issues, both of our bilateral cooperation and the overall diplomatic situation. I am grateful to the Prime Minister for his warm words of support for our people. Then he goes on to say that how he detailed about Russia's ongoing attacks on Ukrainian soil. He narrated one strike of Russia just yesterday in Zaporizhzhia. Remember, Zaporizhzhia is in the southern part of Ukraine and is known for having a nuclear power plant, where, according to Zelenskyy, dozens of Ukrainians were injured in a deliberate Russian bombing in a civilian urban area. And this is a narration that Zelenskyy gave to Prime Minister Modi. Then he goes on to say that it is important that India is supporting our peace efforts and shares the position that everything concerning Ukraine must be decided with Ukraine's participation. Other formats will not deliver results. Now, that's a very significant takeaway from this post of Zelenskyy about his phone call with Prime Minister Modi. Remember, this phone call is happening about 5 days after Prime Minister Modi spoke to President Putin of Russia, and just about 5 days before President Trump and President Putin meet in Alaska for that very big meeting, where Ukraine is not is on the table but not at the table, in the sense that it is going to discuss the fate of Ukraine between Trump and Putin, but Zelenskyy is not invited. And in that context, Zelenskyy is saying that it is important that when you are discussing issues concerning Ukraine, then Ukraine's participation should be there, which obviously it is not. So he's, in a way, he told Prime Minister Modi that this meeting that is taking place between Trump and Putin is something with which Ukraine does not agree with. Now, that's very significant, because President Trump has effectively, the deal maker that he fancies himself to be, has told Ukraine and Zelenskyy to really cut a deal which includes swapping of territories and forgetting about the Donbas republics, the new territory which Russia has captured since the outbreak of war in 2022, and of course Crimea, which Russia had taken in 2014. So this is a very significant takeaway from this detail that Zelenskyy has shared about his call with Prime Minister Modi. Then, of course, he goes on to say we also discussed in detail sanctions against Russia, and he noted that Russia's energy exports should not be allowed to help it finance the continuation of war against Ukraine. Now, Zelenskyy finds himself in a very peculiar situation. He is in no man's land. Trump does not want to talk to him. He wants to talk directly to Putin, and in fact, provide the deal as a fait accompli to Zelenskyy, that okay, fine, this is the conversation I have had with Putin, and accept it, which Zelenskyy, of course, is grudgingly not accepting. He's saying, if Ukraine is not on the table, we are not going to accept it. And remember, just about 10 days back, when President Trump announced those penalty sanctions against India, 25% tariff duty, Zelenskyy came out in support of that. So he wants India's help, but is going to take a position against India. He wants American help, but is not willing to go with Trump formula. He, of course, is in a war with Putin. That essentially comes out of this conversation that he had with Prime Minister Modi.